Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on MyCP. I'm your host, Kevin, and I'm joining you from Houston, Texas. I hope you are safe and healthy. Firstly, I want to make sure your audio and video are working properly and you can see the screen and hear the sound. Please let us know the same in the chat panel if in case of any issue you might come across. Also, do let us know where you're joining from. I would love to see your responses in the chat panel. In case you lose the audio connection anytime during the webinar, you can still dial in using your phone to hear the audio. The details will be available soon in the chat panel. Also, folks, before we proceed, I would like to thank you for choosing MyCP as your continuing education partner. We have started a social initiative for every credit that you receive on our platform. We donate one meal to unserved people under our One Credit, One Meal program. So thank you again for supporting us for the wonderful cause. Well, we have Christine from Vermont. Who else joined? Let me see. We have Jessica. Okay. Hi, Jessica. Where are you from? We would love to see you answering the chat panel. Just to make sure that everything is working fine. All right. So from Belmont, thank you so much for your response. One more thing, ladies and gentlemen, to obtain the credit certificate, you are required to remain logged in throughout the session and answer all the polling questions. You shall receive an evaluation form within 24 hours after completion of this webinar. Once you fill out the form, you will receive your credit certificate within the next 24 hours. This is an interactive webinar, so feel free to put your questions in the Q&A tab, and the presenter of today's webinar, Drew, will be happy to answer them. If you face any technical issues during the webinar, please feel free to put your concerns or questions in the Q&A tab or chat tab, or you can email to us at support@my-cpe.com. So everybody, let me move ahead and introduce the presenter of today's webinar, Drew Stevens, who's the most frequent presenters on our platform. Good afternoon, Drew. How are you?
I am wonderful. How are you this afternoon?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much again to have you on our platform. Well, let me just talk about him, a little bit of history in past. He excelled in strategic planning, revenue operations, and financial success for over 35 years. His competitive differentiations is getting you personally or your organization the edge of it needs to get financially strong. So without any further ado, I would like to hand over this floor to Drew. Drew, the floor is all yours. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited about delivering this presentation to you today. It's something that's near and dear to my heart and that I've been doing quite extensively with some of the clients that I'm with. And so I'm really honored to be here to talk a little bit about an entrepreneur's guide to personal finance. What I want to be able to do so you understand some of the logistics of today is as we get started, what I think I would like to do so that everybody's on the same page is just give you a brief description, of the agenda for today. And then I want to address three very specific questions. Why this topic? Why myself? Why now? And then we will get into the specifics of the program as far as all of the entrepreneurial tools and the resources and the techniques. However, I do have a little bit of an ideology as I deliver these presentations to you all this afternoon, and that is I use a technique that I call and that is nothing more than engaging, introspective, informational, and interactive. I'm going to give you as much information as I probably can, but as Kevin mentioned, we have a good chat window here. So I want to make this as personable as I can as I go through. So for those of you that are not listening to this on a recording or are here live, please stop me at any time. Please ask a question. simply because I want to make this as personal as I can to address any of the questions that you have coming into today's webinar. In addition to that, Kevin and I will have some polling questions for you because we want to keep you engaged and interactive. I don't want this to be just a talk only. And last but not least, I will provide for you ways to get a hold of me, because clearly there's always a question that some folks don't want to address while I'm speaking, so they always contact me after the fact, and that's certainly fine. So in order to get started, let's talk a little bit about why are we even bringing this here? Why is this topic even on this webinar site? And perhaps what engaged you to sign up for it? Well, I do an extensive amount of work with small and medium businesses, and I'll tell you that momentarily here. But what I'm finding in the last, say, couple of years is that many entrepreneurial businesses, and when I use the term entrepreneurial, these could be small to mid-sized businesses, anything from, say, $1 million, $1.5 million a year, all the way to about $250 to $300 million. The fact is that I know 12 individuals who were profoundly affected by the pandemic that we're now constantly undergoing. I have done a tremendous amount of research, and there is research that's to support the fact that over 400,000 businesses have closed. Now, some people would argue, well, that's related to COVID. Other businesses are continually closing because of mask mandates and vaccinations and state rules and regulations. But I will tell you, in as much as businesses are hurting truly because of the pandemic, there are other reasons, and it has to do a lot with the financial aspects. And that's what I want to set up the paradigm to discuss for you today. Let's start with the fact that we do have a COVID pandemic, but let's also acknowledge the fact that there are some trips and obstacles that entrepreneurs themselves are undergoing that they really don't know. Now, what puts me in the front of the room? Why am I here? Why did Kevin even say, hey, Drew, come and talk to us about this topic? I'll tell you why Kevin asked me to come and talk about this topic. A couple of things that I want you to understand about this topic, what's happening and what's going on, and what brings me to the front of the room is simply this. I've been in business for roughly 37 years, and I am a recognized turnaround and expert and restructuring expert. I work with small to mid-sized businesses, anything from $2.5 million on the small end, all the way up to $300 million on the top side. A lot of those from an industry perspective are in the financial technology, healthcare technology business, but I do work with service-based organizations, retail organizations that are service-based, and I have done quite an extensive amount of work with Wall Street related firms, both commercial and investment banks. I happen to be a charter member of the Exit Planning Association here in St. Louis. And in addition to that, I am an author of 14 books, and I have traveled the world extensively as a keynote presenter. So I have some of the research and some of the talent in order to provide this information for you. But let's talk a little bit about why are we even talking about this now? Why even have the conversation? Well, what I'm finding by and large is simply this. Businesses are struggling. And businesses are struggling because many entrepreneurs that own these businesses, many middle market managers, even senior managers that are left running the organizations really aren't doing things the right way. There are many obstacles, and most importantly, people are really stressed out. I had a gentleman approach me the other day by the name of Craig, and he said to me, do you think you can help me, Drew? I am just so darn tired. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know how to make things happen. And I said to him, you know what? Let's have a conversation and let's find out a little bit more about your business and how I might be able to assist you. So that sets us up a little bit with what this program is about, why we are here, and how I'm going to assist you. But you might be saying to yourself at this point, well, where do we begin? What's going on here? So let me provide you with some just foundational tools to get us all on the same page. Because very similar to this woman was Craig, who was, like I said, very, very tired. And what I said to him was simply this, you know what, Craig? and Kevin will back me because Kevin was with me the other day. I presented a seminar here called Business Killers. And what I'm starting to find is that there are 12 obstacles that are in many business owners' way. I find that there are many obstacles in terms of senior leadership that is impacting the business. I tend to call them business killers. I'm only going to talk about maybe one or two of those today as I set this up because it is in terms of entrepreneurial finance. But I want you to understand that part of being financially astute, being fiduciary responsible to your business requires 12 things in order to ensure the fact that there are no trip ups in your business, in order for you to make sure that your business is running at an optimal level. These include, but they're not limited to, strategy, the framework of the organization. Where is the organization going? The purpose of business, having an unbelievable and uncompetitive methodology of a customer journey and a pathway that ensures that your customers are going to be your raging fans. A marketing program which creates community and creates reputation, which then helps to manifest your brand. You would be surprised how many businesses that I speak with on a day-by-day basis that incredibly do not have a marketing plan, do not invest in marketing, and believe it or not, part of marketing is sales. And there are many individuals, such as a physician I was with just the other day, that said to me, you know what, I can't handle this. Sales is not what I typically do. I'm going to let you talk to my office manager. Well, I always say to individuals, especially those that own their own business, the first sale is to yourself. And if you're not willing to commit to a sales structure, how on earth do you then expect your clients to? There's then financial acumen and understanding the finances. And that's really what we're going to focus on here. And these are not in any chronological order, but I want you to understand that there are obstacles that are in your path. And I don't want to give the store away, but having good financial acumen, which is exactly the ideology for this today, will make you more financially astute, and most importantly, will help you to run a sustainable business. And the other 5 or 6 that are up here are different obstacles then that really don't allow you to perform the business in a way that creates a structure, creates a pathway, and most importantly, allows you to design a legacy for something that you have created. And that's something that I'm going to discuss with you today. So with those obstacles in mind, what is a good way to begin so that you are financially astute? What is a good way for you to understand how to run your business in a way that no one, absolutely no one, has ever worked with you on before? Well, that's what I'm here to do. I'm going to give you some advice as almost a mentor, a coach, as if you just started your business today. Perhaps you are thinking about starting a business. You know, we have all different types of participants that come. So what I want to do is formulate some ground level framework for you and then kind of amplify it as we go through. The first thing that you have to have is a decent business model. You have to understand what type of business that you're going to go into. And most importantly, what are you then going to offer the individuals that will then come in and be admiring of the products and services that you have? Will you have a good marketing program? Will you allow yourself to create a modality that allows you to create community around you? You're going to create that community, especially in today's world, utilizing social media platforms such as LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter. You might even decide that you're going to use integrated marketing techniques such as direct mail, email. You might decide that you're wanting to put a website together. Perhaps you want a mobile site. Maybe you want an online shopping program. Maybe you want to do face-to-face sales. Folks, it really doesn't matter. What I'm here to let you know about, you have got to have a business model. You have got to understand in that business model 4 very important points. A, who are the people that you're wanting to serve? In other words, what is your key demographic? You need to understand from that key demographic who are going to be your raging fans, or who you want your raging fans to be. Number 2, how you're going to reach out to them. What are the modalities that you're going to do in order for them to say, hey, that's kind of cool, I want to know more. Number 3, what is the journey? In other words, when somebody comes into your world, what does that journey map look like? What does it feel like, so that people feel that they're part of the process, and most importantly, can be serviced in the right way? And lastly, and something we're going to get to in just a little bit here, what are you going to charge them? How do you know what to charge them? How do you know how you're going to make money in this business? What are you going to do to incorporate those fees to pay for any of the expenses that you have? Well, as we get started here, and since I set you up with the business model, we're going to really start moving very, very swiftly into this program. But in order to do that, I'm going to have Kevin come back, because he's got a very, very quick question to ask of all of you here.
Right. Thank you so much. Drew, here we go with our first polling question. Is there on your screen? How many of you are facing financial business pressure? And we got a minute to answer this poll. Well, we have changed the plan. Instead of taking a minute, we'll take only 30 seconds, because we got very active people today and they answered so quickly, maybe within 15 seconds. Let me just go ahead and close the poll. Share the result. Thank you so much for your response. Over to you, Drew.
Thank you very much, Kevin. And here's what I want to do. Since many of you are not facing the financial pressure, let's do it this way. I want you to use your chat window. And what are 1 or 2 goals that you'd like to obtain from this particular session today, so that I can modify if I need to on the fly, while just giving a general consensus, but getting as much personal time for you as I possibly can. With that said, if there's no financial pressure, and you're here to get a good understanding of entrepreneurial business, here's something that I'd like for you to all understand. When we're starting to put a business together, pricing is a big, big thing that we have to consider. And many organizations, when they start to develop price, and I just had this conversation the other day with someone, and I said, how do you determine price? And they said, well, it depends on what the competition is doing. And they said to me, well, it depends on the economy and so on and so forth. But it was interesting. I never heard them focus on some of the issues that they personally might be undergoing. They professionally might be undergoing. See, price is kind of a sticky wicket that you all have to understand. There are basically 5, if not 6, especially as I discuss them with folks, different reasons in order to provide pricing out there. Number 1, you might price because you're just trying to survive, just like many organizations are doing right now, where maybe before you were charging $15, $20, $30 for a hamburger, and I'm just coming up with an arbitrary fee. Maybe you're charging $5 now, simply because of the fact that you're just trying to survive and you're just trying to pay the rent. Another rationale might be market share. Maybe you're just trying to say that to the marketplace, I'm trying to get a general position in the market, and I'm trying to do what I can to grab market share. Number 3, you might be wanting to do a little bit of market share, but competitive market share, because you're trying to eat into a competitor's turf. There is a reason for being able to do that. A 4th modality for creating your price might just simply be return on investment. Maybe Kevin and I started a business, and Kevin said, hey, Drew, you and I are in business together, but you know what? I'm going to supply you with money. And so based upon that money, I want to see a return on my investment. So if I give you, say, I'm just going to come up with an arbitrary $50,000, Kevin's going to want not only 50, but he's going to want say reasonably speaking, a 10, maybe 20% return on that money. If that's the case, then I'm going to need to price my services in a way that not only gets him his initial investment back, his capital, but whatever the return on investment is. So you need to understand that there is a reason for the pricing algorithm that you want to put together. Before I move forward, I want to move on because Jessica, I want to thank you very much for the question, and I appreciate you coming back to me. You had said in the chat box, I thought it would be interesting to get some general guidance. Here are some tips, here are issues others have so as to avoid them. Your interest is really high level. You don't have any particular needs, and I really thank you very much. And I really appreciate that. And that's what I'm going to do is give you some high level. But I'm honored by your transparency. If you have anything personal that you want to ask, please do. Please put it in the chat box. I'll be more than happy to help. In addition to what I was just mentioning, and again, thank you so much, Jessica. In addition to the survival techniques that I talked about, here's one of the things that I find the most daunting in the world, truly in the world. So I had a gentleman by the name of Phil approach me, and literally with tears in his eyes, he's been in business for 46 years and says, Drew, 1995 was my best business. And I'm struggling, man. I don't know what to do. This is exactly how he sounded. My question to him, as I have been talking about this with other individuals, is simply this. What do you need to open the door? In other words, when you take that key and you put it in the tumble every single day, what does that number need to be? Do you know what? He has no idea what that number is. And it's the most amazing thing in the world because you cannot put a price together without understanding several items. Number one, let's just say you are selling t-shirts and we decide, it's the middle of, because of the time that I'm delivering the seminar, but you might be on a recording listening to this, whatever. But let's just pick a Caribbean destination. And we decide to open a hut and we decide that we're going to sell t-shirts on the beach or we're going to sell hats on the beach. It's not as if we went out and decided that we were going to get a sheep and just simply make cotton out of the sheep, just like that. That's one. Wool or whatever. Wool is from sheep, excuse me. Or just pick cotton out of the ground and start making t-shirts, excuse me. That's what you start saying before you're thinking. The fact is, folks, is that you have cost of goods is where I'm going with this. You cannot price your services. You cannot price your products without understanding what those cost of goods are. It's impossible. I have people that actually literally will price services, or I was telling Kevin just before the start, I do some adjunct instruction. And so as I teach marketing classes, students say to me, well, in order to remain competitive, I'm going to lower the cost of the services. Well, wait a second. What are your cost of goods? Because if you look at the balance sheet and you're taking into consideration all of the inventory that you have, you've got to pay for that inventory at some point. That's known as cost of goods. You at least want your money back. The second thing you need to think of is, what is your break-even point? Because if you don't understand what you need in order to put some money back in your own pocket, you'll never understand what that break-even point is. That's vitally important. And the third thing that I said to Phil is that, as we look around and we're all consumers. I'm a consumer. Kevin is a consumer. Jessica, thank you. You're a consumer. And we all visit different places. It doesn't matter if it's a fast food restaurant. It doesn't matter if it's a supercenter. It doesn't matter if we're out at a restaurant. At some particular point in time, especially in today's times, what we're going to do is we will visit a ladies' boutique or a men's haberdasher, or we will go to a hair salon. And we know what the price of services is based upon what the generality is in that particular area. Yes, there are price increases depending upon certain geographies, but the fact is we know from referencing what we might want to spend. for a woman's blouse, a men's pair of jeans, a baseball hat, a men's or women's haircut, an ice cream, a coffee. That's known as reference pricing. And when your fees are so much higher than what the consumer is used to, then at that particular point, you've got to determine ways in which you're going to create a flurry of activity. And if your fees are so high, you may not get that activity. And then you need to be thinking, how will you then pay for those expenses? It is unbelievable. So you just can't come up with a price without truly understanding what your expenses are. And I cannot tell you how many times I speak to business owners, and business owners do not understand the basic premises of running the business. So I'm speaking to Adam right now. And one of the things I said to Adam was, okay, what's the number? And Adam said, excuse me? I said, Adam, what's the number? And he said, I guess I don't understand the question. And I said, Adam, let me just start from the very beginning. When you take that key and you put it into the tumbler in the door, and you go to open the door every day, what is the number that you need on a day by day basis in order to operate the business? In other words, what are your expenses? And Adam said, excuse the terminology, hell if I know. Well, if you don't know what the expenses are, then how do you know what to charge for the business? That is impossible. You need to understand what your expenses are. And it's amazing because as I talk to business owners, what I ask them all the time is that there should be two tools that they need to understand. And I will tell you that in most instances, many of my clients that I work with do not understand the basic tenets. They will take many of their accounting principles, or they will take their bookkeeping issues, and they'll just send it off to anybody else. So when I ask them about the income statement, when I ask them about a balance sheet, when I ask them about profit and loss, they truly don't understand. So what I decided to put in front of you right now is just a simple picture of what an income statement is. You should understand what an income statement is. And I will tell you, this is coming from a gentleman that in high school and college, folks, I will tell you, I did not do well in math. On my SATs, I did not do well on math. I'm an English and I'm a history major from undergraduate days. I am a business and marketing individual, leadership individual for my master's, and I've gone on to a doctorate. As I've worked with businesses, I come to understand numbers very similar to the way that I understood video or recordings utilizing today's nomenclature when I was an athlete in high school and college. And that is, I always said that recordings always told a story. And you know what? Numbers tell a story as well. I was having a conversation just yesterday with somebody about something completely different. And when you look at the balance sheet of a very large grocer, you notice that their profit and their expenses are way off. And that's because this one grocer doesn't pay for anything. Their shelves are lined with consignment related products. So they don't pay for anything. And so their profit and loss statement is all over the charts. And when you start to value the company, it's very difficult to do that because the company looks like it's at an operating loss because there's no income. You need to understand that. You need to understand what the gross profit of the organization is. You need to understand what your operating expenses are, what your salary expenses are, what your operating income is. In other words, what does it cost for your marketing, to put the lights on, to pay for the telephone? And the list goes on and on. In addition to that, you should also have in addition to your income statement, you should also know what a balance sheet is. A balance sheet is a financial statement that basically says your assets, the total assets in the organization, are equivalent to your liabilities plus your equity. And your assets are things such as cash. Because cash is king, you're going to have that into an account. You need to understand what your account receivables are just as much as your inventory. See, when I talk to business owners, I always say, look, Your inventory is an asset because it can instantly be liquidated for cash. But on the other hand, if you have inventory, the other side of the inventory is the fact simply that it's sitting on a shelf and it could be considered a liability. And it is a liability because you're needing to get rid of it as quickly as you possibly can. But you need to understand this. I had a physician that I was once working with, and I asked him, "What is your account receivable?" And he said, "Drew, I have no clue." Well, if you don't know what your account receivables are, then you're not very good with the business and you're not running the business in a very good, efficient way. And the reason being is because that account receivable is money. That's found cash. That's like going into the backyard with a shovel, digging a hole up literally 3 foot wide by 3 foot deep and finding literally dollar bills and coins in your backyard. Account receivable is money that's yours, and you would be shocked at how many individuals let it go 180, 240. And I say to individuals all the time as you're running business, if you are not getting paid either upfront or within the first 30 to 60 days, you may as well forget about it, because what winds up happening is that you're going to wind up settling literally 50 cents on every dollar. And you don't want to do that. So what is a good thing to do as far as operating the business in a very, very efficient manner, as it relates to price, as it relates to some of the things that I'm talking to here? Number one, you need to start planning for the future. Now, let's put it this way. There's no way that you're ever going to plan for a pandemic or an epidemic. SARS, MERS, AIDS, and now COVID, no one could have ever planned for that. There's no way that you could do that. But, every single business suffers from seasonality in some way, shape, or form. Landscapers suffer from seasonality because they stop literally in October, November, depending upon geography, and they ramp up again sometime in February, March, maybe even April. You will have dry cleaners that go through seasonality. You'll have restaurants that go through seasonality. You'll have boutiques and department stores that go through seasonality. You need to understand what the ebbs and flows are within your industry, amongst your competition, and for your business. That's number one. Number two, you need to think about starting to pay yourself. I was speaking with David the other day, and I said to him, "Listen, I've been working with you for about a year and a half. You've never taken salary out of this place." And he said to me, "Nope, Drew, I haven't." And I said, "Well, shame, shame. We need to start putting salary together for you." Now, I'm a big advocate of, you want to pay your vendors, and you want to pay your expenses on time. This is all part of it. But I also suggest that you want to pay yourself too. That's why you started this business. So whether it's, $100 a week to start, or $10,000 a week, whatever fee comes into place, you need to create some sort of a salary for yourself for several reasons. Number one, it is your business and you want to create some wins for yourself. Number two, you need to conduct, and I'll discuss this in a little bit, some retirement and legacy planning for yourself. And number three, you need to put money away just in case there will be some issue down the line, some kind of, call it, emergency fund. But you need to pay yourself in order to do that. You want to make sure, though, that you are separating your business accounts from your personal funds. The business itself should have its own account. There should be a TIN number for it, a tax identification number for that business, and it should have its own set of books. Now, here's the biggie for you, though. Here is kind of the $64,000 answer to the question, and that is, you need to keep your expenses below your income. I know somebody that he was married to a very high net worth individual. She was writing him checks of roughly $300,000 a year, and he likes to spend money a lot, a lot, a lot. But now he's running a business. That's how I've gotten involved with him. And so what we've done is we've stifled how much he's able to spend on the business. And so it's imperative to understand how to keep those expenses as low as possible so that the income is coming with the business itself. And the other thing that you need to think about is you need to protect yourself. If let me ask a question, you can answer this in the chat box, and it's not a polling question right now. How many of you, if you run the business, if you have your own business, those of you that are here listening to this, have insurance for yourself on the business, whether it is term or permanent insurance or whole life as it's called, even disability insurance? Do you have that? Just put that in the chat box. As you're putting that in there, this is not to put any shame on you, but if you don't have any insurance, you should, because there are too many individuals that are out there that say, you know what, I don't need insurance. That's not, I need automobile insurance because, if I get in the car, you know what, I need it because I need the coverage, because if I get into an accident, heaven forbid, I have homeowners insurance or property insurance in case of fire or flood or theft. But many individuals that are in their own businesses don't have insurance. And to that extent, you can't walk around saying it's not going to happen to me. You know what, folks? I most recently, in fact, next February, let's just do it this way, I'll turn 60 years of age. And I've seen a lot in the last 60 years. And in the last 2 to 3, I've seen more than my share. Individuals that have basically said, hey, come on, that's not going to happen to me. You know what? Big Boy used to say that when he was 20 years of age. Hey, I'm 20, I'm reckless. None of that stuff's going to happen to me. You know what? I've been fired several times, which is why I have my own business. I have had in the past just health and other issues that I didn't expect to have. Many years ago, I had a retinal detachment where an eye doctor took a look at me and said, you better lie down because you're going to lose your sight. I lost part of my hearing when I was 18. It's part of my why story. And that's why I'm so big on insurance, because you can't walk around saying it's not going to happen to me. I would love to say to you that God has you protected, but God also never said that you were not going to have obstacles in some way, shape, or form. My learning lesson here, put some insurance together, because unfortunately, you want to do something to protect yourself. You want to put some things together that will help you over the course of time. A couple of other things I want to run past you that are going to help you is that you should be paying your local vendors very promptly. You don't want people in and around your neighborhood, in your local community, saying, oh, wow, Kevin, you're a deadbeat. You don't ever, pay me anything. You want to be able to pay anybody locally that you're using for vendor services as soon as possible. You also want to pay your bills as soon as they arrive. Typically, what I'm finding is that it used to be roughly 10 years ago a net 30. Then after the Great Recession of 2008-9, it became a net 15. What I always say to individuals, I don't think there's much to worry about today, because many, many vendors are utilizing electronic services, whether it's PayPal or Venmo or an ETF, electronic funds transfer, EFT, electronic funds transfer. The fact is that if you see a bill, you should just pay it promptly. This way you don't have to worry about it. I also tell people to purchase equipment rather than lease it, because you don't need the annuity costs that literally come with that. But a couple of other things here, and I'm not going to read everything on the slide. There's no reason to, but I will tell you, if there's an opportunity for you to subcontract your services, you should do that when possible. Let's just say, for instance, and I'll just look because she was the last one to respond, Jessica, if you want to take, say, $150,000 out of the business, that's going to come roughly to about $75, $80 an hour, give or take. You assume 50 hours a week, 8 to 10 hours a day, do the math, that comes up to roughly 75, 80 bucks an hour at that. And I'm just spitballing here just to give a hypothetical. I find that many individuals, especially entrepreneurs, because they want to be a little bit more tight on the money. Although that's not to say that I haven't seen this with middle market companies that are making $50 million a year. But some don't like to spend the money. And so what they'll do is, well, let me make a business card at my printer. I've got a nice HP 8600 Office Jet. I'm going to use that. I have an iMac and I have all of this publishing software. And then suddenly it gets jammed. or they run out of printer cartridges. You've all been there. I know you know this. Or, you know what? I'm just going to use Microsoft Word. I'm going to take a Word file. I'm going to convert it to a PDF, and then I'm going to print out that PDF, and I'm going to use it for brochures that I'm going to put on a table someplace. And then you find out that the PDF's not printing. The paper gets jammed in the machine, or it's not high gloss. And then you have to go out and get the paper for it. And whether you go to Office Depot or Office Max or Walmart, they don't have the paper. And then you spend 4 hours running around trying to find 80-pound semi-gloss paper. You all have been there. You all know what I'm doing. Well, it's a waste of your time. You could have printed that off at a local FedEx or UPS store, or any local printer for that matter, a whole hell of a lot less than the 75 or 80 bucks an hour, and less frustrated as well. My advice, don't do that. Use services where possible. I'm going to step away. My friend Kevin's going to come right back in here. I hope you're getting really good advice. As he puts that polling question for you together, I have another quick question I want to follow up with. And that is, what is the one thing you're walking away with before we take this little break? And then, Kevin, I'm going to cue you up for this second polling question here.
All right. Thank you so much, Drew. The second polling question right there on your screen. Do you know what your business is worth? And maybe you got 30 seconds to answer this vote. And post to that, you can definitely put your answer in the chat panel, asked by Drew.
Oh, we got about 30 seconds left here. I'll let Kevin finish it out, but it looks like one person had it done recently, Kevin. And I think that's terrific. If you had it done, tell you what, let's do this. Due to the intimacy here, what I would say to you is simply this. If you've had it done, that's exceptional. And I really appreciate the information here. If you haven't had it done, I'm going to provide for you, when I'm all done, my email address. I will send you a quick form that will allow you to fill it in. You have to send me back some paperwork, and I can put a valuation on your business. You need to have that. You need to have it because of some of the things I want to talk to you about here with respect to the remainder of the webinar here. And that is the fact that I find that many individuals that have their own company will say, you know what, I'm so busy running the company, I don't have time for other things. I don't have time for valuation. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that. And what I will say to you is that every single person that has a business should put a value on that business. There are several reasons for this. Cynthia came to me recently, and she owns a tanning salon very close to where I'm at. And she said to me, I want to sell the business. And I said, why is that? And she said, Drew, I'm just not making any money. It's not fun. It's weighing me down. I need some help. So I said, so what do you want to sell it for? And she said to me, what do you think it's worth? And I said, do you have a valuation on the business? And she said, no. And so I said, so what do you want to sell it for? And she said, I don't know. And I said, well, let's see your books. She's one of those that I was talking about at the very epicenter of this thing, and that she doesn't know her expenses. She doesn't read a balance sheet. She doesn't have an income statement. So I had to put something together. When all was said and done, she's got 12 machines in a 2,000 square foot store. She's paying anywhere between $2,500 and $3,000 a month. And literally her business is falling apart piece by piece. The best that I can do on that business is to value it at roughly $45,000, $50,000. That's with the equipment, that's with the remainder of the lease and everything else. You need to have that information for two dire reasons. You need to have that information for, number one, if at some particular point you're thinking about selling the business, maybe to somebody else, Or maybe you're looking on the flip side of it. You are doing very well and you want to establish yourself with credit to go to a bank or maybe even a private investor so that you can scale the business. Maybe you're looking for more employees. Maybe you're looking to conduct a merger and acquisition. Maybe you're looking to bring in different product lines, whatever the case may be. In order to do things right, you need a good business valuation in order to move you in the right direction. There's another reason for that, but I want to hold on to that thought for a moment, and I need Kevin's help because I have another question I need to ask you.
All right, thank you so much. Last polling question right there on your screen. No, that's not the last question. We have third polling question, I guess. What happens if something happens to you and your business? We have 30 seconds to answer this. And we have 3 questions waiting in the chat management. One is from Jessica. Let me end this poll.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, guys, for the response. What I'm seeing here, Kevin, is somebody's thinking of just if something happens, they're just going to sell it. And somebody else had said, well, I'm just going to slide it over to a current employee or perhaps even a partner. I appreciate that. A couple of things to point out here for all of you guys, and that is simply this. As you see from the sharing of the results here, it's kind of split in between the two of them. What I want you to be thinking of is similar to what I was saying before. If something happens, I love the fact that you're thinking that you're going to sell it. I also love the fact that you're thinking of you're going to slide that over to somebody else. That's where that business valuation comes from. And that's where I was suggesting at the end of that other slide, heaven forbid something happens to you. From a good financial perspective, what you want to be thinking of is simply this. You want to be thinking, what happens to me? Now, there's 2 ways to look at this. Heaven forbid something doesn't happens to anybody that's sitting here, but it happens to you. This happened to a friend of mine, Donnie. Donnie is in a similar business as myself. He is a consultant. Now almost 2.5 months ago, Donnie put out on Facebook, Charlotte is not feeling well. I'm on my way to the hospital. He sent that on Facebook. About 48 hours later, he said, apparently Charlotte has contracted COVID. She's in the ICU, and that's all they'll tell me at this point. I'm not allowed to see her. He is then giving us updates for about a week. Here's what's happening to Charlotte. Then literally in day 4, Charlotte coded and came back to life. And he's telling us that on Facebook. And then 2 days later, we find out that our numbers are coming up. They're considering taking her off the ventilator. A day and a half later, I see a picture of Charlotte on his Facebook post, and it just gives the year of her birth and ultimately 2021. Yes, unfortunately, she perished. As I said before, we can't walk around thinking that we're not going to become disabled. Nothing's going to happen to us, whether it's an accident, whether it's an illness, whatever the case may be. That's one way of looking at this. The other thing is, from a financial perspective, that I really want you to be thinking about is simply this. Similar to the answer that somebody provided before, I'm going to give it to a partner, or I'm going to give it to an employee. You need to have and should have a good entrepreneurial personal finance plan, would then be creating a succession plan. Yes, a true succession plan. And there are succession plans that you can actually obtain, believe it or not, where no money actually changes hands. Where what winds up happening is it's known as a buy-sell agreement, where what is set up is a insurance policy on the owner. It's funded by the company itself. And believe it or not, when the owner is ready and willing to move on, believe it or not, the person that wants to buy that um, buys the business through the premiums of that particular insurance policy. So that's a good way to do it. But a good succession plan really does one other thing, most importantly. From a good fiduciary responsibility, it's a CYA. It says that basically, should something happen in any way, shape, or form, my business is covered. And all this is known as is business continuity. Now, think about that for a moment. Just take a deep breath. If there is an opportunity that this thing, this idea that you created, that you have birthed, that you have nurtured, that you have done everything you physically can to take it to the next level, wouldn't it be great for you to be able to create a legacy so that it's sustainable, so that it lives beyond you? And that's exactly some of the businesses that I'm working with now. I'm working with somebody by the name of Victoria that has a jewelry business, and her dad had it, and now she has it, and she's getting ready to pass the torch to her youngest son. And that's exactly what we're doing, is we're creating a business succession plan so that her son is able to take over should she get ill. We're also doing that for somebody who is a former student of mine who is in a taxidermist shop. And the owner said, look, Dirk, I'm 65. And you know what? I can't do this forever. I need somebody to take over my business. And I want this business, which is highly recognized and has been highly recognized from the days of my great grandfather owning this thing, going forward. Now, Dirk's only 20 some odd years old. He doesn't have the millions of dollars to do this. And so that's exactly what we're doing, is we're conducting a CYA so the business continues, so the business continuity, and an opportunity then for also to create for this gentleman a business sustainability program. The other thing that I want you to be thinking of is that there's always going to be time. You know, as I said, in February of this year, I got to tell you, I'm a little shocked that I'll be 60. I bet you Kevin didn't know that, but I will be 60. And I still remember like it was yesterday, I was 20. We always say that there's going to be time. The fact is that when you have your own business, what you want to be thinking about, and I have my own, so I can talk to you from the heart. And my why story is that I got really crappy advice. So that's why I'm here. I want to be able to dispense advice so that you make smart decisions for the future. And so what I want you to be able to do and be thinking of is that, the clock keeps running. And at some particular point, if we're not creating succession plans, if we're not creating an ideology and education for balance sheets and income statements and modalities for running the business better and business continuity plans, that, you know what, there's always going to be time. At one point, you're going to look at the mirror and you're going to say, how in the heck did I become 75 years of age? I've had the business for 40 years and oh my gosh, I need to do this. You're not going to be able to get it done. So I want you to be thinking, start making plans now so that you can create a sustainable pathway for future success. I've got one other thing I want to share with you, but Kevin's going to help me with one last little polling question here that I wanted to ask you. I think some of you had addressed this before, but I want to make sure that we're specific with with where you're going with this.
Right. Thank you so much again. Last polling question right there on your screen, and we have 30 seconds to answer this. Do you have a family member in line to take over your business? We just talked about it. All right. Thank you so much for your responses. Let me just go ahead and shut it off. Thank you. Over to you, Drew.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Thank you, everybody. You're all quick on these, and I appreciate it. And you know what? If you don't have anybody to take over the business as a family member, no harm, no foul. I'm just wanting to understand where people are at. Because here's what I want to suggest to you. Many individuals that I talk to say that, you know what, my business is my retirement. What I want you to be thinking of is simply this. Whether you decide to succeed with a family member, with an employee, or somebody else, you can't be thinking that you're going to work until you're 70, 80, I'll just die in the business itself. The reason being is, as I said to you before, I got really bad advice. I got really bad advice on accounting. I got really bad advice on insurance. I got really bad legal advice. The list goes on and on and on. What I want to share with you right now is simply this. We need to plan for the future. I don't even want to call it retirement. I just want to call it the sunset years. As we get to a particular age, we know at some particular point, look, I'm going to be 60. So even if I decided that I wanted to go back to work full time, people are going to look at me and say, who in the hell is going to hire you? And I'm not interested in taking some secondary job at, 10, 15, 20. I want a true executive position. That's just me. Okay. I don't know what you're into, but I'm saying that simply because I need to make sure that my sunset years, I'm able to do one of four things. And that is plan for guaranteed expenses. I know at some particular point in time what my expenses need to be, either my utility, my mortgage, my automobile payments, my insurance, the list goes on. Food, okay? Guaranteed expenses. I know every single week we spend X dollars on food. But I also happen to know, ladies and gentlemen, that there is then what's known as unguaranteed expenses. Yeah, the vacation that comes along at some particular point in time. Yeah, a repair bill that may come along at some particular point in time. And last but not least, then there are medical expenses, expenses that I did not expect. And you want to be able to conduct a CYA. The only way to do that is with the other two modalities, which would then offset it. Number one, guaranteed income. You can get guaranteed income from your pension. You could do it with an IRA. You can do it with salary if it's the salary that you're pulling from. It might even be at some particular point in time an annuity if you're thinking it that way. And then obviously Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, the list goes on and on and on. And then finally, savings and assets. But you also want to have other modalities for non-guaranteed income. And the reason why you want to do that, such as as investments, is you want to be able to offset whatever those expenses are. You can't do that in a very structured way if you don't set up the structure. So what I'm suggesting to anybody that owns a business, especially your business will have non-guaranteed expenses, I want you to be thinking of a couple of things here. Number one, what are you going to do to create your legacy? Number two, what is the lifestyle that you would like to have for that legacy now, or even for the legacy that you can start planning for? Number three, what's the type of liquidity you need? Because if you want to have that lifestyle and you're looking to create a legacy, then you need to create the liquidity necessary to meet those other two. Folks, as I kind of wind this up for you, I want to leave you with a couple of business practices here that I think you will find very helpful. Going back to what I said at the very beginning, number one, you should know what your daily numbers are. You should know all of the expenses that you have so that you can topside create a good price for yourself and create value. You should do that utilizing good accounting and bookkeeping methods. Talk to a CPA, have decent conversations, and create some good budgets for yourself. No matter what, whether you're taking business off of the top or you're taking a little here, a little there, you need to establish an emergency fund. And the reason being is because something's going to happen along the way. I just want you to be able to create a good CYA for yourself. Last but not least, create a good financial plan. Somebody said it before, and I forget who, I think it was Jennifer, was saying earlier that she's in finance. Well, Jennifer, create a good, rock solid financial plan for yourself, an investment strategy, whatever you need to, what I say, not get rich, but to stay wealthy. That's what I'd like you to be able to do. And the best way to do that is to surround yourself with a good team of individuals. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I want to thank my CPE for having me here and for hosting me today. Number two, I want to thank all of you because you were tremendous with your interactivity, allowing me to provide you some really, I hope, really very good advice for you to be able to plan and protect yourself in the future. Number three, I want to thank Kevin immensely. He has been a tremendous facilitator. He has really been my right-hand person so that we could deliver to you flawless information in a great way between the technology, between the polling questions, and just the registration and having you here with us today. Should you need to get a hold of me, two ways that you can reach me. Number one, I do have a website that you're free to go to, and that is simply Drew, D-R-E-W, Stevens with a V.net. And if you want to get that business valuation from me, if you want any additional information on business killers, what I ask you to do is just email me directly and I'll be more than happy to help you. That email address is drew@stevens.net. Again, thank you so much for attending today. God bless you all, and I look forward to seeing you on another seminar.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for appreciating me. It was sweet, Drew. And I must say it was very crisp and you made it very interesting with examples and your personal experiences. And I believe it was a great learning experience for everyone, including me. Just a quick reminder for Jessica. And we have one more. Okay, Jessica and Christine, we will send you the evaluation form within 24 hours and need to fill that evaluation form in order to get your career certificate into your account. Well, we got a few more seconds. If you have any query, you can just go ahead and post that in the chat panel, and our presenter of today's webinar will be happy to answer them. If not, we'll simply go ahead and wind up the session. And even though I'm very curious to know the experience of today's webinar, and definitely you can share your experience and you can give your feedback, and you can email to us on support@mycp-com. I don't see anything coming up in the chat panel, and Jessica said, thank you. You're very welcome. Well, please keep coming and keep joining us. And thank you so much. This is your host, Kevin, signing you off. Thanks. Have a nice day ahead. Thank you, Drew. Have a nice day ahead.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it. You have been awesome as always.
Thank you.